Hi, Tracy here with another layout using the Darlene kit and add-on, which are the kits from Scraptastic for the month of April. And this is my second layout using this kit, and I wasn't sure which of these two photos I would use. One of them is a photo of my house, and one of them is a photo of my sister and my nephew. And so what I thought I would do is just cut them both up, like trim them both up, and then just kind of have a look at the papers and see if I lean one way or another. So I'm right away leaning towards the picture of my sister and her son, and I'm just picking out some of the papers. The papers this month and the colors are very soft and beautiful, and I want to make sure that I don't put too much pink on this layout. It's okay to put pink on a layout of a boy, but I don't want to. So I'm just picking out some of the Scraptastic exclusive papers. This yellow polka dot paper is awesome. And one of my favorite things to do is to mat a photo in a fairly bold geometric paper. And that just kind of leaves this little tiny bit of the boldness that you can see, and it tones it down because you can only see a little bit of it. But I find that it really adds a lot of energy to a layout to just put, especially when I'm going to be using a lot of soft layers with pretty papers, I like one of them to be bold. And so that's my yellow pattern paper there, is the bold one. These are both pattern papers that are exclusive to the Scraptastic Kit Club. So the yellow one is the first one. And I'm not entirely sure where I disappeared to, but I think I'm coming back. It looks like I am. So I'm also going to use that green pattern paper from Scraptastic as my background. I had to go get my trimmer. I think I must have done something else too. So that's going to be my background. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with this layout, or what the title is going to be, or anything like that at this point. I'm just writing down on my layout ingredient form. Oh yes, I did come up with a title. That must have been what I was off doing for so long. I think I Googled mustache puns, and so I came up with a title. The title is called "I Mustache You If You Are Having Fun Yet," which is a statement and not a question, but I did put a question mark on it because I don't know why. I guess I wasn't really thinking, and I do like the look of the question mark there. It doesn't make good grammatical sense. So I had bought some things this week, and I don't do a whole lot of shopping, but the bowl that I bought came wrapped in these two pieces of tissue paper. So I just left them in my scrap. There's the bowl right there. I left the tissue paper in my scrap room to use amongst layers, and so And so I just used the piece of tissue paper on my very back layer. And now I'm just having a look through the die cuts that came in the I Am collection from Simple Stories. And I picked out a couple that I thought might coordinate well with what I want to say about this layout. And I just put them in that little bowl. And I also thought that I'm going to want to use some of these rub-ons as my very back layer. So those will be on my background paper, which I will live to regret. But you will see that. A little bit of foreshadowing here. So I am using my ruler. I love using my ruler to cut paper or to rip paper, I guess, because it allows you to tear paper on a straight line, but you get that extra texture along the edges of your paper. And I am using two of these wood veneer medallions. And I'm going to use these resin arrows, or at least two of them. But I'm really just at this point playing around with some of the things that I might want to put in these layers, and I'm going to take it all apart again in a few minutes. So at this point, I'm having a look at that leaf paper and wanted to use it, and then I noticed that the back side of it was a really nice diagonal pattern, and it occurred to me that I would want to frame this layout in with this background paper. The back side of the leaf paper, but then it's the only one I have, so I want to make sure I get to use the leaf paper, so I just cut out the middle part so that I could still have a little bit of that leaf paper for a future layout. And so now I just have to cut down this paper. I cut off, I think I cut a half an inch on two adjacent sides, so that the whole thing is a 1/4 inch smaller all the way around. And now I'm just using my 0.05 what is it called again? I always forget the name of these pens. Micron pen. And I'm just using it to outline my paper. I love outlining when I'm framing a layout like this. I just think it adds a little bit of interest to the edges of the layout. So there we go. And I wanted the triangles to be pointing down and not sideways. Up or down would have been fine, but I didn't want them sideways. And so I'm just going to play around with my layers a little bit and make sure that there are little bits of each of these papers poking through. And when it comes to those gold polka dots, which are really throwing off my camera a little bit here, but when it comes to those gold polka dots, I want to make sure that some of them are showing. I don't want that to look like a white piece of paper. So I'm just going to be mindful of that. I outlined only one piece of it. There I am dancing, sorry. I was in a really good mood when I was doing this. So I outlined only one of those pieces of paper. When my papers are layered in with such tiny little bits showing, I will often not outline all of them just because it's a lot of outlining. Like you end up seeing a whole lot of marker and it can take away from all of the patterns. But I really wanted to emphasize that pattern paper right there, the one with those lines on it, because that's really my favorite paper on this layout. So, and I just kind of taped them all down in the middle so that I could peel up the edges and put lots of layers. So you'll notice that even though I pop dotted that photo, I only attached the middle pop dot. I didn't attach all of the edges. That just allows me to poke other things in there later on. And then I just curled up the edges, just the left and the right edge of that paper that I've outlined, and then I put some pop dots underneath of it to support it so that when it's in my book it doesn't get scrunched down flat. And so because the title is going to take up such a huge part of this layout, I'm going to go ahead and do the title now, even though I will often leave the title for the last. So I am going to do it before I do my embellishing. So my layers are all done and I'm just catching up on those papers. So that was a Webster's paper page, a Webster's Pages paper. And then the gold one is from my Mind's Eye from the On Trend collection. And now these thickers are called imprint and they're really, really pretty. They're cream with a gold center in them. They're just gorgeous. I love them. So I'm going to spell out mustache, and I'm thinking about spelling out some more words in this font just because I love the font so much. I want to get lots of it on my page. And so what I decide to do is make all of the main words in this. So mustache, having fun, and yet are all going to be in this font. And also I'm going to go back and put the word I as well in this font. But that's going to be a decision I make after I've already kind of spelled everything out. So there I am putting that question mark on there. And it's not a question, but oh well. I just wasn't thinking, like I didn't even consider whether there should be a question mark or not. I just put one. It does look nice with the question mark. We'll call it a design element, okay? That's what we'll go with. So now these are Ellie's Studio letter stickers that also came in the kit. So far, everything except for the tissue paper is items that came in the kit. So I get a choice here because these letter stickers come in upper and lower case. And I kind of went back and forth for a few minutes there. You didn't see it because it was on fast forward, so it just was a second for you guys. But I did kind of consider whether I wanted to use lowercase or uppercase letters. But because the imprint thicker font is in uppercase, I just decided to go with uppercase for these letters as well. So there you go. And I'm going to play around with placement a little bit to decide whether I want to put kind of if you and you and R on the same line, or if I wanted R by itself. And I decided to go with R by itself because it gives a more interesting justification. So if you look at the edges, at the right and left edges of the title, it gives it more of a kind of like an in and out look, as opposed to the other way, they would be almost the same length. So U and if and U and R would make up like a little rectangle in between the I Mustache having fun yet. And so I wanted to just give it a little bit more interest. So that's why I decided to put R down by itself. So here I have my gesso. I was going to paint, and then I've run out of white paint except for milk paint. And milk paint is so wet that I would have to put gesso down in order for the layout to not get really wrinkly. And then I decided, well, I'll just use white gesso then. I do have clear gesso, which I usually use when I'm going to paint on a layout, which I don't do very often. But anyways, so I'm just experimenting with different brushes. I definitely wanted a cheap brush that leaves lots of brush strokes. These are just from the dollar store. So my first brush was just too wide. It was going to be too much for my smaller letter stickers. And so here's where having my words on a piece of wax paper makes it really easy for me to be able to tell how much of this painting I need to do with my gesso. So I'm just trying to not get anything too messy as I do this. And going back and filling in as the gesso dries, I definitely want that translucent look. I want you to be able to see the pattern paper underneath, which is why I was going to use milk paint, but it just would have been too, in order to get a milk paint that was as dark as I wanted, I would have had to have used a lot of it, and it would have made my paper so wobbly and kind of wrinkly that just gesso is easy enough. I often will use gesso in place of paint. Although, as you guys know, I don't use paint very much at all. But so here we go. Yes, right. So I actually forgot to press record, so you didn't get to see me put that entire title on. And I also outlined the small letters with my .001 pen, and all of that got missed because I went for a break and forgot to hit record when I came back. So I'm just at my sewing machine now. I'm running a sewing line across all of the lines of my title. And the other thing that I did while the video recorder was not on is I rubbed some rub-ons onto my background. I think I mentioned at the beginning I was going to use those as a background element. And I ran into some trouble with one of them. One of them did not go on very well. I managed to fix it, and I was really disappointed when I realized that the video camera was not running because it was a good fix. And so I want to show you guys what I did for that rub-on. So just hang around at the end, and like for the end of this video, and I will show you what I did to fix the messed up rub-on. And rub-ons are always tricky because it depends on the brand and the manufacturer and how old they are, and you never know if a rub-on is going to be finicky or work really well until you're already in the middle of a project and it's ruined. And so I'll show you what I did. I have two ideas, one that I did and then just another thing that I've done other times when rub-ons have been a little bit contrary for me. So I went back and I sewed across the rub-ons as well because that was my plan all along. I just forgot to do it when I was at my sewing machine the first time. And I'm just putting washi tape along my stitching just so that it doesn't come unraveled because I don't do any back stitching. I also outlined with my pen one of the rub-ons because it was just so pale you could barely see that it was a rub-on. So I just kind of did like a doodly sketchy outline around it. So now I'm going to place these wood veneer medallions that I had already decided earlier in my process. I had already decided to use these. So I'm just placing them now. I cut one in half so I can use the other side of it on another project. And I just put my glue so that it's mostly going to be covered because it'll almost certainly ooze out, but it didn't matter if it's covered. So I really like how that looks actually. And now I'm just going to play around with what other embellishments I might want to put in the layers here. So I love that little heart. It says "so loved" although I'm sort of covering up the D of it. And then I like that little star tab there. It's like a little rectangular die cut with gold stars, gold foil stars on it. It's really cute. So I'm liking this, and this is pretty much the way it's going to be. I just have to glue some of these into place. I'm using my Mono Multi Adhesive, which is a very strong drying wet glue that dries matte, clear matte. And I'm just putting a couple of other pop dots to support some things, just to keep my layers separated the way that they were before. And that was annoying me, the way that that little die cut piece was layering. So I just cut off the other side because it wasn't sitting properly. You could see some of the white back on it. So I couldn't find any more flat die cuts that fit this, that fit in the places that I wanted them to be. So I went to the chipboard pieces that also came in the kit. They're also part of the I Am collection from Simple Stories. And I really like how this feather looks right here in the corner. I like how it kind of sits with the medallion behind it, and then that little tab that says noted right behind it as well. I thought about doing that. That would have looked nice there if I didn't already have the awesome rub-on there. But I don't know, it's a little bit too much. So I put that little other chipboard piece. It says Loving Life. Put it down there at the bottom by the bottom part of the title, because I'm going to be putting this arrow to point at the beginning of the title. So I just want to kind of finish off the title with a little something. I keep my glue upside down, so it does tend to ooze a little bit in between uses if I keep the lid off of it. So now this is upholstery thread. I'm going to show it to you in a second, and I'll try to catch a freeze frame. And what I love about this upholstery thread is that it stays circular. So it's not quite as much of a messy blob as using regular thread. It's thicker and it keeps its circular shape. So I really love it. I'm going to catch there you go. There's the freeze frame of it. It's Coats Extra Strong Upholstery Thread. And I have it in cream and white and beige and black. And I think brown too. I've got a whole bunch of them. And I really only use them for scrapbooking. I don't do any upholstering. So I'm placing all these layers in between the two rub-on, the 3 rub-ons. There's 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom, and then the string. And then I decided to put a little bow enamel piece right on the bottom of that feather. It just makes the feather look like a little bouquet flower thingy or something. I'm going to use my tiny attacher to attach that little Loving Life piece of chipboard down there underneath the word yet. I think that's what I'm doing. Am I getting my tiny attacher? I hope so. Oh yes, no, not yet. What I went to do right there was I went over to my stash of washi tape, and I'm looking for some washi tape that I can use for my journaling. And I had those gold star, that little skinny gold star washi tape, which I really love, and I was going to use it and write above the washi tape like I've done. That was a really awesome idea that I saw on YouTube. But I didn't want to. I kind of changed my mind on it. I just felt like I wanted some color instead of just more gold. There's a lot of gold already on this layout, so I don't know, I just wanted something different. So I have this washi tape here that has these little bands of color, and it's the blue, the green, and a red, so I just didn't use any of the red, and I made them kind of staggered, and I don't know, I'm going to use them as my journaling strips. I'm looking for my black Sharpie, but I can't find it. Somebody must have borrowed it. So that's what the delay is here. And I decided to do my journaling in brown. Even though there's some outlining in black, it doesn't really matter. And brown looks quite nice. There's already some wood veneer on this layout, and there's, the gold and brown look okay together. So it looks okay. I like it. It's actually such a dark brown that when I look at it right now, the layout is right here beside me. It actually looks black. It does. Yeah. I would not think that was brown. You'll have to look at it at the end when I show you the close-ups, but it definitely looks black. So that's good to know about that brown marker. I didn't realize that it's pretty much black. So because this is a transparent piece, I was going to use my glossy accents, and this bottle of glossy accents is just too frustrating. It's an old, I've had that glossy accents since I think 2009, so that stuff lasts me a long time. And I do have a new bottle of it, but it wasn't close to hand, so I just used my mono multi-adhesive, and it dries to clear and you can't see it, so it's fine. There I go with my tiny attacher, and I added a little enamel shape there, just one of the gold ones that came in the kit. I thought about putting another little piece there, but it was too much. I like that arrow just all by itself, although I am going to add a little heart right up there, and I think I'm going to put a heart in one more place. I'm going to put it right by this arrow. So each of the arrows has a little heart, and then that little chipboard phrase underneath the word yet also has a little heart. So now I'm just going to show you this layout up close. It's finished now. I didn't do any splatter or anything on this one. And I'm just going to show you all the different parts of it. And then I'm going to, if you hang tight after this close-up part, but before the photos, I have a little bit of video that shows you guys what I did with the rub-ons. I'm sorry that I didn't press record and capture that as it happened, but I will try to recreate it and stick that video in next. And then if you want to see the photos of this layout, just hang tight till the very end or fast forward to the end, and you can see the still photos of this layout as well. I love long title layouts. You guys, anybody who follows my channel knows that I do a fair number of long title layouts. And this is one of my favorites right now. So here comes the part about the rub-ons. Hi guys, so when I went to put this rub-on onto my layout right here, I didn't have the camera rolling. I forgot to turn it on when I came back from cleaning my paintbrushes, so unfortunately you guys probably missed a huge part of my process, so I'm sorry about that. But when I put this rub-on and this rub-on went on fine, but when I went to put on this rub-on, it gave me a lot of hassle. So I came up with a solution for that, and I think that you can't even tell that this rub-out event at one point was a huge mess with big gaps missing and all the pieces were torn apart. And so I'm going to show you how I did that because I missed that important process in this video. So I'm hoping that this Hello rub-on will have the same problem. It doesn't seem to be as sticky as some other rub-ons, like it's not quite as sticky on the back. And so what was happening was that when I rubbed it down, it was releasing, the rub-on was releasing from this backing paper, but it wasn't sticking to my layout paper. And so when I pulled it back, it would kind of float back up and stick more to the backing than sticking to my layout. And so I'm not sure if that's going to happen here, but I'm hoping to recreate that. It's one of those strange times when I'm hoping that a rub-on won't work. So I'm going to rub this on, and what I usually like to do is kind of rub the whole rub-on just to get it so that it's all sticking, and then rub it in a more kind of structured way. So see, it's sort of happening there, and with the other one, every time I went back, it wasn't sticking. So see how I'm kind of noticing that parts aren't sticking, and I'm just putting it down and rubbing it again. So I'm hoping that some of these will just like not stick at all. Okay. So I'm kind of trying to recreate it. This rub-on seems to be working quite a bit better, but I'm still going to be able to just recreate my problem here. Oops. See how? Here it is, it's happening now. So this rub-on does not want to stick to the paper. It just keeps coming up every time that I try to release it. So I end up with something like this, where I've got part of the rub-on on my paper and part of the rub-on here on the backing. So if you look at the paper, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it on the camera, but you can see a little faint image. It's almost like a ghost image of where the rub-on tried to stick to the paper and then lift it off. So I'm going to take my Zig two-way marker and I'm going to fill in. So I'm going to take my Zig two-way marker, it's just a glue pen, and I'm going to fill in all of the places where my rub-on is not sticking to my paper. So I'm going to start by finishing off this E, and I kind of have to move the paper around to see exactly where I need to put this, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And then I need to do the L and the other L, because the glue just dries clear, so it doesn't really matter if I get glue in the wrong place. But I want to try to get glue at least everywhere where I want the rub-on to stick. So now I just need to, and I'm gonna have to stand up to do this, but now I just need to kind of get over it so that I can line it up exactly perfectly. So excuse me if my head gets in the way, but I'm just kind of lining it up in all of those places and gently placing it back down, and I'm rubbing again. You can use the rub-on stick if you like. And I'm just hoping that that will encourage the rub-on to stick to the paper a little bit more. You do have to be pretty patient with it still. So like this L is not exactly wanting to stick, but it's doing a little bit better. So you don't always have to use glue. Sometimes you can just put it down and rub it a little bit harder and it will stick. But in this case, these ones were just really not sticky enough on the back of them, so it wasn't sticking at all, no matter how hard I rubbed. And it was rubbed to the point that it was coming off of the backing, but it really just wasn't sticking to the paper. So there you go. Rescued rub-on. There you go. So I hope that this tip helps. If you're ever working on a rub-on and you can't do this, one other thing that you can do is you can fill it in with pen. So let me just show you that. Put this rub-on on. And I didn't take my time, and I can't, or I didn't press hard enough, or I tried to use the other technique that I just showed you and it didn't work. And I end up with this rub-on that looks pretty messy. It's just not quite finished nicely. What I do is I take a marker, and I like a fine point marker. This is 0.007, and I like a fine point marker so that I can really get in there and be very fine with it. And I just fill it in. And of course, you know, you have to match your marker to the color of your rub-on, so this is easier with a black rub-on because we all have black markers. But even if it's gold, I have filled in gold rub-ons with a gold marker that I have, and white rub-ons with my white gel pen. So it's doable. It gets trickier if it's a color other than black, white, and gold. Like it might be hard to match that cream, for example. There. So now that looks quite a bit better. So there's two different strategies for rescuing rub-ons. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have a really great scrappy week.